We plan on spending a lot of money this year. That is just a fact. We have 4 flying trips planned, plus we're hoping to do some local trips that involve driving, and we're trying to make a couple of big purchases this year. So we're going to be spending a lot of money this year. And here's an extra thing on top of that. So obviously travel is important to me. Like I said, 4 flying trips this year and maybe some other shorter ones. And I don't have paid time off. So I'm an independent contractor, and when I don't work, I don't get paid. So how on earth are we going to be able to afford this? That's what we're going to talk about in this video today. There are 2 main ways that I afford travel that you need to focus on if you want to be able to afford to travel more frequently, especially if you have a family, or especially if you have a situation like me where you don't have paid time off, where you lose money when you take time off of work, which is very unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is as far as that goes. So the 2 ways that I make travel happen is by saving on my trips and saving before my trips. And what I mean by saving before my trips is not saving up for the trips, although I guess it sort of is. Well, let me come back and explain that in a second. So the main ways I save on my actual trip: we keep our accommodations very basic. We are not into super fancy hotels. Of course, we want them clean and we want them safe, but beyond that, I don't care. If it's a nice La Quinta, good enough for us, right? We are on our vacations rather for exploring our destination, for being out of the hotel. We're not there for the stay. You know, we're there to visit the place we are at. So we keep our accommodations very basic. And then we also have like a few things that we focus on when we're traveling. Each destination we go to, we have a few key things that we focus on. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Also, the real way we afford to travel is by keeping our everyday budget low. And that's probably not what you want to hear. That's probably not what you're looking for. You probably want to hear all these budget hacks and how to have these extravagant vacations cheaper. And I have some tips for that. I have some tips for how to enjoy vacations that are budget vacations. But the main way to be able to afford travel is by prioritizing it in your day-to-day life. If you aren't keeping your everyday budget low so that you have extra money to travel, you're not going to be able to travel. I'm sorry. Again, that may not be what you want to hear, but that is just a fact. The way you afford to travel is by spending less in your everyday life, unless you are capable of increasing your income in some way, which is also one of my goals for the year. One of my goals for the year is increasing my day job income, my independent contractor income, so that I can take days off and not get paid. I want to make more money the rest of the time, and I want to make more money from this side hustle. So if you could please subscribe and like this video and leave a comment if you like it, that would be lovely. But I don't want you to just subscribe because I ask you to. I really want you to find value in my videos and things. So if you do find this helpful, or if you have any other specific questions or anything you'd like me to elaborate on, I already have some videos planned to elaborate on some of these points. This is more of an introduction and overview, and I'm going to go deeper. But if you have specific questions, please leave me a comment and do subscribe, and I will work to make your subscription valuable. Subscription sounds like you're paying for it. It's free to you, but still, if you subscribe, I want you to get something out of being a subscriber. I guess that's a better way to put it. So I do plan on increasing my income, but I'm also still going to continue to focus on keeping my everyday budget low, because that is the main thing with being able to afford travel. It has to be a priority in your day-to-day life. If you are also prioritizing going out to eat frequently, if you like to drive a nice car, if you like to go and do all these expensive things every weekend local to you, you aren't going to be able to afford to go other places and do fun things. Again, that's just a fact. Unless you're like really wealthy, which you're not watching this video, if you can afford to live expensive everyday life and travel a lot. You aren't here watching this video. And if you are, thanks, but why are you here? I'm just kidding. but someone like that is probably not watching this video anyway, right? You are here to learn, to hear about how you can afford to travel more. And that is the main thing. Find ways to cut your everyday budget, to spend less in your day-to-day life. For me, as might be obvious if you follow me here or on Instagram, I prioritize eating at home, and your food budget is one of the easiest to cut. It's a Freudian slip. I said cook because I was talking about cooking. The easiest to cut is your food budget. It's a lot harder to move somewhere cheaper. You can't really control the cost of living, right? Things like that. Of course, you can cut things like entertainment. If you are going and doing stuff every weekend, you can lower that and find free and cheap ways to entertain yourself and your family on the weekends or on weeknights if you're one of those crazy people that can do stuff after work. I am not. I am a grandma at heart. So that does naturally help keep my budget low, is that I'm too tired to do stuff often. And I am just more of an introvert and need to stay at home. So that does make it easier for me to spend less in my day-to-day life, right? Like, I'm either traveling and doing stuff or I'm a total homebody. So that personality type, I just spend less naturally. But if you are not that way, if you love to go and do, there are still ways you can save money in your everyday life. And if you want to go and do more in a travel sense, you might need to cut back on what you do in your day-to-day life. All right, I think I'm beating a dead horse now. So we'll move on to my next point. I do light travel hacking. I don't do very in-depth travel hacking. That is actually one of my other goals, is to do some more travel hacking. Like I said, we already have 4 flying trips on the books for this year. Well, okay, technically 3, but one is booked in my head, Disney World. That is a goal. It's not officially booked yet, but in my mind it's official. But we have 2 weddings. We're flying to see family, so that will be cheaper accommodation-wise, flying to see family. 2 weddings we're flying to are A, back-to-back, so my income that month is going to be very low. They're like 2 weeks apart. And B, they're flying across the country, and we do have to pay for accommodations and everything. So those are not going to be cheap. And they are later in the year, after the summer, so I am hoping to do some little travel hacking, at least for the flights, to make those trips cheaper. And if you don't know what travel hacking is, that is where you utilize credit card sign-up bonuses. So say I want to go get a new Southwest business card, which is on my radar. I'm going to start comparing prices of flights, compare United versus Southwest versus like a regular bank card like Capital One or Chase or something like that. And you sign up for a credit card and you meet the spending minimum. So it may be like $3,000 in the first 3 months or $6,000 in the first 3 months, which is a lot of money. But then you get something crazy like 80,000 bonus points in addition to the 6,000 points you get for spending $6,000. So all of a sudden you have 86,000 points, which could be multiple round trip flights or round trip flights for multiple people. That is the goal. That is the goal. And some people are really good at this. They are constantly signing up for new credit cards and getting those bonuses, never holding any balance on their credit cards, which is the key to doing this. And it's saving you money, not costing you money. When you have a credit card balance, it does cost you money. And due to unpaid maternity leave and a more expensive birth story for my daughter, we do have some credit card debt. So paying that down and then signing up for a new credit card is the goal. Again, that requires increasing our income this year as well. So big goals for 2024. But yeah, I do light travel hacking, not so much the constantly signing up for new credit cards. I just don't have the time or energy for that. But if that is something you are interested in, I have a few people I suggest following over on Instagram, and I think one of them has a website. So Aunt Kara, however she says it. Kara is Kara, and I'll link all of these and have it pop up here on the screen. So Aunt Kara, my personal friend Lizbet Talks Money is her account on Instagram, and then Watch Me Travel Hack. She's actually kind of close to me too. She's in Austin and I'm in Houston. All of those accounts are really great for learning more about travel hacking and getting notifications about when a really good credit card bonus is coming up or about to expire, things like that. There's usually time frames where these banks or companies increase their sign-up bonus to get people signing up for the credit card, and then it goes down. I recently missed one that was really good. So my goal is to get the next really good bonus. So we'll see how that goes. But light travel hacking is my goal. And so definitely free flights are a major way to make traveling cheaper. Even if you do intense travel hacking, even if you have free flights and free hotels, travel is not free. You may have a free trip, but are you just going to go there and sit in the hotel? Are you going to not eat during your trip? No. Travel still costs money, even if you are an intense travel hacker, okay? So how do I keep the actual travel more than just the hotels and the accommodations cheap? I find my priority for the trip. So much like you have to prioritize travel in everyday life, when you are on your trip, you have to decide what your priorities are. You won't be able to do everything if you are a budget traveler. Again, that's just a fact. You won't be able to do everything unless you go somewhere that's like crazy budget friendly. National parks, things like that are usually pretty budget friendly because you just go in and do all the things. You pay one entrance fee and you can do most of the things in the park. Obviously, you still have to eat and things like that. But the way I keep our trip cost to a minimum is more of a like mindset technique, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I'll use our Charleston trip as an example. When I was planning our trip to Charleston 2 years ago now, it's been about 2 years. It'll be 2 years this March. Great trip. Love Charleston. It is one of the top travel destinations. It is the top travel destination in America for like multiple years, and I agree. It was so fun. But when planning that trip to Charleston, I sat down and I was like, okay, what do I think of when I think of Charleston? What are the first things that pop into my mind? That is how I determine what our priorities are. If I don't do those things when I return from the trip, that will be what makes me feel like I was deprived. So we're avoiding FOMO, right? When you focus on those like main things that pop into your brain when you think about a destination, or when you think about a trip you've been wanting to go on. So for Charleston, I'm a big history nerd, and so is my husband. So seeing historical things in Charleston was top of my list. I also am kind of weird, and I love, I'm like this real straight-laced goody two-shoes person in real life, but I love like mobster history and pirate history and like serial killers. I don't love serial killers. I find them fascinating. You know what I mean, right? If you're a true crime junkie, you know what I mean. Obviously, I'm not one of those crazy people that like actually loves Ted Bundy. I'm going on a rant now, but you know what I mean. So I love pirates. I love pirate history. I find it fascinating. So we went on a pirate walking tour in Charleston, which was like hands down my favorite part. It was so great. And then because we're history nerds, we went and saw Fort Sumter, which is where the first shots of the Civil War were fired, which is very important and historically significant. And that's something you don't see anywhere else in the world. So that's another way I prioritize things, is what can I see at this destination that I can't see anywhere else. I'm not a person, I've never, even before we had kiddos, I'm not a person that wants to go like clubbing on vacation. You can do that at home. I'm not going to go bar hopping, anything like that. You can do that at home. I can. Maybe you can't where you are. Houston, I could do that, right? That's not a priority to me. Food that's unique to that destination is, especially in Charleston. Again, that was one of the top things in Charleston for everyone, is eating. So for me, it was historical things and food. That pretty much summed it up. So if we had just done the pirate tour in Fort Sumter and eaten, I would have been very pleased with our trip. We did a few more things, but the other things were very, very budget friendly. So I downloaded a audio walking tour instead of paying for another tour, and it was like $1.99 to download. And we just listened to it and walked around and saw some of the other historical sites. We drove to the beach. We drove to the Angel Oak tree, which is really, really cool. If you watch Outer Banks, the one in the show is not the real one. It's much cooler in real life. They like stole that real life thing and changed it for the show, and it was disappointing. But it is a really cool place, and it's free. Yes, I think they take donations, if I remember correctly. Things were also a little different because it was 2021 and it was COVID. So it was still a little different. So we did rent a car on that trip. And that's another thing, is research is very important if you are trying to go on a budget trip. So, and I'm gonna have another video where I go in depth on these things, but comparing dates of your trip, comparing airlines, dates of the flights can make a huge difference. But also one thing I check and balance is staying in the city center in a more expensive hotel versus right out of the city center and renting a car. Like, do I want to stay where I can walk to things? What is the cost of that? Or do I want to stay farther out and cheaper and rent a car? And I can compare and contrast those things. For Charleston, since we knew we wanted to drive to some of the beaches and some things a little farther away, I knew we'd be renting a car anyway, so we stayed just outside of the main downtown area, which was literally like 15 minutes, which is in Houston. That's what I drive to the grocery store. So that's not far at all. But it was like hundreds of dollars a night cheaper to stay just outside of the city center. So totally made up for the price of the rental car. So doing your research, comparing and contrasting these different options, very important for traveling on a budget. And then light travel hacking helps me save money and finding those priorities. I don't want to just do things because they're touristy things. That doesn't matter to me. What's important to me? Maybe if you go to Charleston, maybe you do want to do the fancy restaurants and spend most of your time at the beach. Okay, whatever works for you. If you have no interest in Fort Sumter, no interest in a pirate tour, which I really think you should be because it was really cool. But if those things don't interest you, you're not going to prioritize spending money on those, right? And that's perfectly fine. Focus on like 2 to 3 main priorities per trip, per destination. So lastly, my recommendations for doing your research are actually primarily here on YouTube. I love to watch videos, vlogs, travel vlogs of people going to different destinations and getting a feel for different things, getting their reviews of things, seeing it live in their videos, and deciding if that is something I want to do. And I like to get a little bit of background knowledge on like how things actually go when you're there, when you're actually there. Sometimes you won't be able to find that though. Sometimes a destination just doesn't have, it's not like glitzy where people are doing vlogs about it. So you may not be able to find that. Obviously, Pinterest has a ton of information about every destination. And of course you can do Google, right? Obviously you can do a Google search of everything. Read some reviews on TripAdvisor, things like that. But also I like to go pull up Google Maps and I will search things on there, or I'll just like zoom way into my destination and I'll just look around and see what pops up. Prime tourist spots, popular things will pop up on Google Maps, and then I will save them into a list on Google Maps. And that is really helpful when you are on your trip, being able to look these things up really easily. So that is always good to literally have in your back pocket, your phone with all the things saved on Google Maps, but it's also a great way to look up reviews. Some things are tourist traps, and you don't want to waste your money on a lackluster tourist trap. So that's another way to research and save money, is avoiding things that aren't worth it. But also, when you look at those things, you might find people mentioning, hey, on Tuesdays, there's half price tickets to this, or things like that. So that's always just a little quick thing you can do to find some more information about your destination. But in summary, remember, the main ways to afford travel on a budget, to be a budget traveler, is to prioritize travel in your day-to-day life, keep your day-to-day expenses lower. If you are like me, and the way you're going to do that is by lowering your food budget, eating at home more, be sure to subscribe and follow me over on Instagram for all of my best tips for lowering that budget, that food budget, and not dreading dinner at the same time. You don't have to be spending hours in the kitchen to keep your food budget low. Trust me. All right. So 1, keeping your day-to-day budget low, and 2, prioritizing specific things on your vacation and keeping your overall travel budget low as well. All right, like I said, I hope you found this video super helpful, and if you did, please like it, leave me a comment about what stood out to you most, anything you need clarification on, And yeah, subscribe, like, comment, and then follow me over on Instagram for lots more travel inspiration, family travel tips. Be sure to watch my other travel videos, especially if you're traveling with little ones. I already have a couple of videos out about flying with little ones. I think I'm gonna do some more. Every time we go on a trip, I'll do like a review of how this trip went with my daughter at X age. She'll be flying like a month before her second birthday in not a couple of weeks, oh my goodness, in 2 months, she'll be flying a month before her second birthday. So yeah, if you are trying to travel with little ones, I will be giving even more tips than you will already find on this channel. All right, I will see you next time.